afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In the series on sociological theories, today we are going to discuss functional theory in both anthropology and sociology. So in the kind of the nurturing of the discipline of sociology, functional theory was one of the key perspectives used by several anthropologists and sociologists to understand society. So in today's lecture, the focus would be to first understand the way in which functional theory was applied in anthropology by two key figures, Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown. And we will also try to understand what is functional theory, what are the key concepts used by them, and the various differences in the key undertakings or the key argument of different anthropologists and sociologists. So it is also a perspective which is known as functionalism in sociology. It like the evolutionary theory, which we have already discussed in the earlier lecture. Functional theory is a theoretical perspective. It is kind of a way in which anthropologists and sociologists have tried to understand society. And if we look into the term function itself, they are using this term in order to understand how society works as a whole. So we kind of know that society is a total of several parts. So how each of the parts are connected to each other, and this the understanding or the sociologist, the focus is to understand interconnectedness of parts, and that interconnection also creates a structure. So they will be trying to understand how these interconnections functions in a certain manner to maintain a particular social order or equilibrium in society. Through the course of the discussion, we'll see that the functionalists, by and large, were trying to focus on the positive role of institutions, norms, values in maintaining social order or a moral order in society. So the focus actually of the functionalist is on the collective as such. So the interconnection that they were trying to understand as parts and whole relation, these parts were seen as always contributing to a positive function. So they were kind of assumed that it would contribute positively to maintain harmony in society, to maintain cooperation among different parts. So there was a kind of a state of balance and equilibrium in society. It was kind of seen that the society existed because of the contribution of each part. For instance, if we look around, every institutions have some functions. So we look into the positive understanding of family. It is seen as an institution that provides support. It kind of functions to provide socialization through which the youngsters and members of family learn the norms and values of a particular society. They are kind of learning. So family is one of the first educational institutions for children where they learn the basics of the society. Similarly, if we look into the economy, it has a certain function. There is a question of exchange of goods and services, and through the interconnection of the demand of supply of goods and services, a relation of a kind of a cordial relation is established, which provides again stability to the system. Similarly, if we look into the institution of politics, it provides a means of governing members of society. So there could be a level of harmony in society when state functions in a positive way to coordinate the relationship among different citizens belonging to different class, gender, ethnicity, and they are kind to play leveling game. So the state or politics becomes a institution fulfilling the functional role of maintaining integrity in the society. Now, if we look into the origin of functionalist theory, it emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century, and this is the same time when sociology as a discipline was emerging. It was kind of in its most nascent stage, and as said in the earlier lecture on sociological theories were coming in response to the large scale social, economic, political changes taking place across society due to the process of industrialization and urbanization. So the emergence of functional theory can actually be traced to the great revolution of 18th and 19th century. The first was the French Revolution of 1789, and during which there was kind of intense violence, bloody kind of lot of conflict, and this kind of was tearing the society, or it was kind of creating a rift between members and individuals. So you see, it was within this context of conflict and violence, a perspective emerges which would provide a positive way of looking at the society. So when this violence and conflict was there because of the French Revolution, the aristocracy throughout Europe feared the revolution would spread to the lands, and intellectuals feared that the social order was crumbling. So the intellectuals, philosophers, they were kind of getting cautious about the large scale dysfunctioning of the society, or the whole idea that they will be crumbling down of the social order. The second revolution, which kind of can be considered as the point at which functional theory emerged, was the Industrial Revolution of 19th century. Now, during this revolution, the concern or the problems that emerged during the French Revolution got re-strengthened, they re-emerged, and it first kind of starts in Europe and then spreads to United States. It kind of leads to large changes. There were large-scale growth of cities. People were leaving their agrarian land and were moving towards cities in search of occupational which would enhance their income. So large-scale mobility and the emergence of cities created a larger inequality between those who could afford the life and aspiration of cities and those who could not. So there was a kind of disorder in the society. So what was the response of the intellectuals to this disorder? It was only by kind of constructing theories which would kind of help us to bring back the social order, or try to explain how the disintegration was kind of happening because certain parts of the society were not performing the functions that it was supposed to. So within this, we see this is the time exactly where Durkheim would start writing about solidarity, or he would start talking about the collective conscience. So this kind of origin of functionalism is kind of runs parallelly to the emergence of discipline of sociology. Now, if we try to understand functionalism as a sociological perspective, then we need to understand that there are certain premises, or there are certain characteristics or certain common features or that could be identified in the work of a number of functionalists. So the first is society, which they were kind of anthropologists would use the term culture, was a system like any other system. So, you kind of not consider social society which consisted of human beings and human interaction or social relations among members as something different from the other system. And the reason why this was there, because of the influence of positivism and the way in which the founding figures of sociology were trying to understand society in reference to the physical science. So society was understood like a solar system or any mechanical system. On the term, it was kind of understood as an organic system. So as a system, society consisted of parts. So just as an organism or any kind of a atomic system or a mechanical system consists of several parts, and there is a kind of a specific role assigned to each part. So the system will work only when each of these parts of the system contribute in a healthy manner, or they're all connected to each other. So there is an interconnection, interrelation and interdependence between different parts of an organism. Now this same understanding was applied to society, that each part are dependent on each other, there is a relation among them, and they function together to maintain order in society. So each institution, so each part of the society has a specific function to perform, and the function in such a manner to maintain the integrity of the society as such. So if we see, there are two levels of function. One is the function which the part is performing in order to the system to maintain order, and the other is to function is to ensure that the entire system is working in an interdependent and interrelated manner. The third premise of functionalism is that since these parts are related to each other and are dependent also, interdependent and interrelation is there among them, if there is any change in one part of the system, it is going to have an influence on other parts as well as the entire system as such. So just kind of any machine or any technology that we have, if one part doesn't work, that particular machine or technology fails to do the function. Similarly, in a society, each of them have to do their work. If one doesn't do, the repercussion would be on the other system, other part as well. And the fourth premise is that the functionalists or those who were advocating functionalism as a perspective looked into the society as a whole, and this the focus is on the collectivity, that it is the part which is making the whole, but it is the part is less significant than the summation or the society as such. And in order to understand society, the emphasis is not on individual, the emphasis is on the society or whole. And the fifth premise of functionalism is that every society, though they are functioning in the same manner and there could be lot of similarity and universal principles found, yet each society or culture will have its own consciousness, and this comes out very clearly in the work of Emil Durkheim, where he uses the term collective consciousness. Now this collective consciousness comes in from the feeling of belongingness, and that feeling of belongingness arises from several factors. So that sense of belonging to one particular society with its particular identity is something that would differentiate one society from the other. Now if we look into the way in which functionalism has been used in anthropology, we see that there are two main branches, or there are two types of functionalism between 1910 and 1930. The first is Malinowski's biocultural or psychological functionalism. So we will talk about how Bronislaw Malinowski, who is considered as one of the founding figures of anthropology, used functional theory to understand biological and psychological needs of human society. And the second branch of functionalism in anthropology is Ratcliffe Brown. Now Ratcliffe Brown would differ from Malinowski, and his focus would be more to understand the functions of the structure, the way in which structures contribute to the functioning of the society, and therefore his approach is known as structural functionalism. So Ratcliffe Brown and Malinowski, they were bringing about a paradigm shift in British anthropology, and they kind of brought about a change in which the way society was studying. So there is a shift from historical perspective to the focus on empirical reality. And one of the most important contribution of Malinowski and Rattle-Brown to anthropology is the focus on fieldwork as constitutive experience of social anthropologists. So all the findings that, or the theory that was developed by them, were based on their fieldwork, which kind of focuses more on understanding social reality from an empirical perspective. So let us try to understand Bronislaw Malinowski's work as a functional theory. We know that he is one of the founding figures of British social anthropology, and the reason why he is known as a father of ethnography is because of he's one of the first anthropologists to have done extensive field work in the Trobriand Islanders. His work, The Agronauts of Western Pacific, is based on his field work, and all his idea of functionalism and functional theory emerges from the field work that he's done. He's done extensive field work. If we were to understand Malinowski in a kind of a very brief way, we know that there are two most important components of his theory. One, he believed that all custom and in a society are integrated and interrelated, so that if one changes, the other would also change, and each then is a function of the other. So the whole way is that they are into an interrelated, interdependent part, and the existence of one is dependent on the other. The second attribute of his theory is that all human beings, and as human beings, we have certain universal biological needs, irrespective of the culture, irrespective to the norms, value, to the economic system or political system. Every human society has certain universal biological needs, and these needs have to be fulfilled, and that is why different institution emerges to fulfill these needs. And if we kind of look into the way in which he focused on needs, his theory is known as needs functionalism, because it is more or less a psychological theory in terms of trying to understand how the society has certain needs, and these needs are biological, these are universal needs. Society plays an important role in satisfying the needs of the individual. Some of the basic biological needs are food, shelter, and how do we kind of ensure that everyone in the society has food? This is through the understanding of distribution, or how norms are created in the culture to ensure that every human being's needs is satisfied. He looked at culture as a need of the people, and throughout the role of culture is to satisfy the need of people. So the culture becomes dominant institution for the analysis of Malinowski. And if we kind of look into the way he was trying to establish a relationship between biological need and the way culture fulfills this need, his theory is also known as biocultural functionalism. There are certain biological needs, culture helps to fulfill these needs. So the need functionalism is that we kind of have, is also trying to make us difference that it is not reductionism, because each level constitutes its distinct property and needs, and from the interrelationship of different levels, that culture emerges as an integrated whole. Culture comprises of both material and non-material object. Material that kind of could be have a value, it could be compensated through monetary value, which is non-material culture, a lot of artifacts, a lot of objects which kind of acquires an importance in society because of its social significance. So there are human beings kind of needs both of them in order to fulfill their need. and comprising of both material and non-material objects. Human beings have created right from the time in the beginning to the fact that they are kind of the idea that culture has helped to satisfy the instrumental needs of the society. So it is a need serving and a need fulfilling society. The next theory that we can use to understand Malinowski's functionalism is the theory of vital sequences. Now, basic of Malinowski's approach is a theory of vital sequences which have a biological foundations and are incorporated in all society. According to Malinowski, there are 11 vital sequences, each composed of an impulse and associated physiological act. So there is a kind of three things. One is the sequence, the other is the impulse, and the third is a physiological act. And there is a cordial relation between them which helps human beings to fulfill their needs. For example, the impulse to drive to breathe, so one of the biological need is to have enough oxygen. So we have an impulse to breathe fresh air. And how do we breathe? We do it through the intake of oxygen. Now what will it also do is that it will act. There will be a certain action, and the action would be the satisfaction that we will acquire, and that satisfaction would be the elimination of carbon dioxide from the body, from our body, and so we are satisfied that we have taken in oxygen and given out carbon dioxide for our biological need of getting pure air. So Malinowski then follows this 11-fold paradigm and gives us this basic needs versus cultural response. So the basic need is metabolism. The term that he uses for this is commissariat. Then the second is reproduction. The cultural response is family and kinship. The third basic need is bodily comfort. Culture has started having residence, shelter. Fourth is safety. We have cultural norms of protection. Fifth is movement. The cultural response is activity. The sixth basic need is growth, for which there are several trainings. Culture has developed training which ensures growth. And seventh is health and hygiene. So if we look into the second is Radcliffe-Brown's structural approach, and he was a French sociologist, was influenced by Durkheim, and he argued that social phenomena constituted a domain or order of reality, and that is independent of psychological and biological facts. So the Radcliffe-Brown was focusing more on the structure rather than the psychological or biological need, and he says that social phenomena are supposed to be understood with reference to the network of relationship in society rather than depending on psychobiological needs. So he has kind of taken this two terms, structure and function. So structure would imply a constitutive units are related to each other in certain pattern, and each of these structure are doing certain function to maintain the system. He said that organic analogy could be used carefully because there can't be too much of reliance on biological organism. We have to understand society from a social system, that is, there is a continuity of the structure, and that continuity has to be maintained by the process of social life. So there is a relationship between structure and function, and to explain the relationship he turns to biology and try to say that the structure is an ordered arrangement of its part, and function of the part is to interrelate the structure of an organism. So social structure is ordered arrangement of person and group, and the function of persons are to the structures of society and social organism. Social function is the interconnection between social structure and social life. So what the sociologist has to do is to study the arrangement of the structure and see how each structure is functioning. So this relationship of part and whole is similar to the organic analogy. So we look into the structural functionalism of Rattle-Brown and Malinowski. We will have a clear idea of the functional theory and the way it was used in anthropology. With this, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.